She looked in the mirror and didn't recognize herself. Broken, alone, after the brutal breakup, Marina still didn't know who she was. The apartment they had shared was silent, but Diego's words echoed. You have no personality of your own. He was right. For 3 years, she had become a perfect copy of everything he wanted. And now, without him, she needed to discover who she really was. Have you ever lost so much of yourself in a relationship that you forgot who you really were? Marina was about to embark on the most important journey of her life. Back to herself. A journey that would take her from broken to beautiful. Discovering that self-love wasn't a luxury. It was a necessity. Marina had always been the girlfriend who said yes. For 3 years, every choice Diego made became her choice too. What movie do you want to watch? He would ask, but he had already decided. Marina would tuck away her preference for romantic comedies and respond, whatever you want. Pizza at 11 at night when she had an early class the next day? Sure, honey. She would cancel plans with friends when he wanted to stay together. Marina can't make it today. Sarah would hear over the phone. Diego wants me to stay. At first her friends understood. Later they stopped calling. Marina thought she was being a good girlfriend. She believed that love meant this, making the other person happy, even if it meant completely erasing herself. Every yes to him was a no to herself. And Marina smiled, proud of being so understanding. She didn't know she was losing herself. The exhaustion came slowly, like a shadow that grows without you noticing. Marina would wake up tired, even after sleeping 8 hours. It was a tiredness that didn't come from her body, but from somewhere deeper, darker. She found herself sighing for no apparent reason, as if her body was trying to expel something heavy she carried inside. When Diego asked what she wanted for dinner, Marina felt a strange irritation rising in her throat. Whatever, she would respond. But inside she screamed, I don't know what I want anymore. She began to feel anger at small things. The way he changed the channel without asking. How he decided where they would go on weekends. But the greatest anger was at herself, for not being able to say anything. Marina felt like an actress tired of playing the same role every day. A role she had created herself, but that now suffocated her. When did taking care of others become a way of abandoning ourselves? It was on an ordinary Thursday that Marina saw herself in the bathroom mirror and didn't recognize the woman looking back. She tried to remember the last time she had done something just for pleasure, just for herself. She couldn't. She tried to remember what her favorite food was before Diego. Nothing. What was her favorite song? Her preferred movie? Her favorite color? Absolute silence. Marina realized there was a mental drawer that had been locked for years, where she kept all her true tastes, dreams, and desires. And she had lost the key. Who are you? She asked her reflection. The answer was terrifying. She didn't know. Marina had become a shadow of another person. A completely edited version of herself, where all her original characteristics had been carefully erased to please someone. In that moment, she understood the brutal truth. She wasn't just in a toxic relationship. She had become toxic to herself. What happens when you wake up and realize you've become a stranger to yourself? The conversation started like always. Marina agreeing with everything. Diego wanted them to move to a smaller apartment farther from her work. Sure, she said automatically, already mentally calculating how she would arrive later every day. But then he stopped and looked at her with an expression of disgust. Marina, do you have any opinion of your own about anything? About anything at all? She hesitated, desperately searching for something, anything that was truly hers. I think that, you know what? He interrupted, his voice loaded with disgust. I'm tired of this. You have no personality of your own. I don't even know who you really are. You only exist through me. It's suffocating. Diego grabbed his keys forcefully. It's over. I need someone who's a real person. The door slammed violently. Marina stood in the empty living room, the words hammering in her head like hammers. The irony was devastating. She had completely erased herself to please him. And it still wasn't enough. Even becoming nothing, she still wasn't what he wanted. She had lost herself for nothing. How does it feel to discover that completely erasing yourself still wasn't enough to be loved? The first days after the breakup were hell. Marina cried in the shower, in the car, while shopping. But in the middle of the pain, something strange began to happen. For the first time in years, she could choose what to eat for breakfast, what music to listen to, what clothes to wear. Small choices that seemed monumental. On the third day, she did something unthinkable. She said no. A co-worker asked her to work overtime on the weekend. Marina's automatic response would be sure, but she stopped. The word felt foreign in her mouth. I can't, she said, and immediately felt a mixture of terror and freedom. That night, she sat on her couch, their couch, and realized she could watch whatever she wanted. She scrolled through Netflix for 20 minutes, paralyzed by choice. Finally, she picked a romantic comedy Diego used to mock. As the opening credits rolled, Marina laughed for the first time in weeks. It was a small laugh, but it was hers. When was the last time you did something just because it made you happy? Week by week, Marina began practicing something revolutionary: self-compassion. She started talking to herself as she would talk to a dear friend. You're not to blame for getting lost, she whispered to the mirror each morning. You were trying to love in the only way you knew how. The guilt was overwhelming at first. Every boundary felt like betrayal, every no like cruelty. But slowly something shifted. Marina bought a journal and began writing down her rediscovered tastes. Coffee with cinnamon, 80s music, unhurried Sunday mornings. Each entry felt like archaeological work, digging up pieces of herself that had been buried. She discovered she actually hated action movies, that she loved rainy afternoons with books, that she missed dancing, something she hadn't done in 3 years. One Saturday, alone in her living room, Marina put on an old song and moved her body. It felt like coming home to herself. Each small preference was a victory, a piece of herself that she was recovering. The woman in the mirror was becoming familiar again. How does it feel to rediscover who you are when you never had permission to know yourself? But Marina's journey was just beginning. Because it's one thing to rediscover who you are in the silence of your own apartment. It's something completely different to live this new version of yourself in the real world, with people who were used to the old Marina, with challenges that would test every boundary she was learning to establish. If this story is making sense to you, if it resonated with you in any way, subscribe to the channel so we can keep telling stories like this. And before we continue, leave your like. Thank you for your support. The first test came 2 weeks later. Marina was at the supermarket when she ran into Diego with a new woman. Her first instinct was to hide behind the shelves, but something made her stop. She took a deep breath and continued her shopping, buying the things she wanted, not what he used to like. When he saw her and waved uncomfortably, Marina smiled back with a serenity that surprised her. At the office, when a colleague tried to push an extra project on her on Friday, Marina said calmly, I won't be able to. I have other commitments. It was a lie. Her commitment was to herself, a night reading the book she had bought. But for the first time, her own company was priority. During this time, Marina reconnected with Sarah, her best friend from whom she had grown apart. You're different, Sarah said at lunch. More present. Marina smiled. She was present. Present in her own life. Confidence grew like a plant that finally receives sunlight. She was no longer anyone's shadow. The following months brought changes Marina had never imagined possible. It wasn't easy. There were relapses, moments of doubt, days when the old Marina tried to return. But she persisted. 6 months after the breakup, Marina was at a coffee shop celebrating a personal milestone. For the first time in years, she knew exactly who she was and was proud of that person. That's when she heard a familiar conversation at the table next to her. A young woman was crying to her friend. "He said I changed too much, that I'm not the same person anymore." Marina recognized the pain, but also the opportunity that lay before her. Discreetly she approached. "Excuse me for intruding," she said softly, "but I heard you talking. Can I share something?" The young woman, Emma, looked at her with red eyes. Marina told her journey, how she had completely lost herself, how it had hurt to discover that even erasing herself wasn't enough, and how that became the beginning of her true life. "The best thing someone can do for you is force you to rediscover who you really are," Marina said. "He gave you a gift even though that wasn't his intention." That day, Marina understood that her journey wasn't just hers. What if your greatest pain became the gift you offer to the world?